Our goal for today is to actually do two things. Number one is to show you how you can use NotebookLM to do a lot of your market research. And number two is that you are actually not going to listen to me from this time. You're actually going to listen to one of my students who actually took this boot camp a few months ago. And the point of this is because I want you to hear real stories from real PMs about how they're using NotebookLM to actually be more productive and be more. Before I introduce my special guest today, just a quick introduction of myself. My name is Mustafa Kapadia. I am an instructor on Maven. One of my flagship courses is the AI-empowered product manager, which I'm so glad Carmen is joining. And I do the instructor on Maven, but most of my work is actually helping CPOs figure out how they can bring AI to their organizations to make their PMs more effective and more efficient. So with that being said, I'm going to hand it off to Usman. And by the way, this is a very informal conversation. This is just me and Usman talking. Usman is going to share with us how he's using AI. There's no slides here. Everything here is just live and unscripted. So Usman, why don't you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Well, thanks, Mustafa. Yeah, sure. I'm Usman Sattar. I'm a Director of Healthcare Technology Research at Cotiviti, which is one of the largest provider of analytics products to the healthcare plans and the healthcare organizations in the United States. A part of my responsibility is to keep myself up to date with a lot of Gen AI research and try to implement those research findings across the organization. So it's an ongoing process. It's sometimes feel defeating, but it's I think well worth the squeeze. So what I'm gonna be doing is like give you an overview, a couple of tools that I use on day to day at my job, and then we'll probably go from there. Mustafa mentioned that I attended his course like a couple of months ago. It's been almost a year. I was
Has it
cohort
been that
one.
long?
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
it's almost 1 year now. So I was the cohort one of his course, and things have dramatically changed since then,
Yes.
Mustafa, to be honest with you. It's just a never-ending stream of innovation
Yeah.
and the features that are being launched by these companies. So I would urge everyone to just stay ahead of the curve, just to
Yes. And
just
sometimes that is the hardest thing because they are
absolutely,
changing so much, right?
absolutely, absolutely.
So, Usman, I know you have a few use cases that you want to share with us. Let me just step back for a minute, if that's
Mhm.
okay. NotebookLM is relatively new. It's been launched. It's probably been, I say relatively new because it's been 3 months, which is a lifetime in our space. Tell me more about how you learned about NotebookLM, because NotebookLM is not as popular as, of course, Claude or OpenAI or Perplexity. So I'm just curious, how did you hear about it, and what made you decide to experiment with that tool?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I've been using NotebookLM for almost like 3 months now. Like it's probably since this was launched or something like that. Because
Right.
so as I mentioned that one of my jobs is to stay ahead of the curve and trying to figure out like what new tools are being launched every day and how
Yeah.
can we use it for our own benefit in our organization. So we were experimenting with the pro version of Gemini at that time. And Notebook LM and some of the extended features came free with that.
Yeah.
It was in the beta stage at that time, and we were like trying to experiment with some of the capabilities that it had, and then it all went from there. And it now the features and the capability has expanded even more. So I would say probably it's been a 3 months, and that's where we started using for our personal use, like I had lots and lots of PDF files that I wanted to like explore. You forget about the things that I'm sure a lot of organizations have this problem. They have a lot of internal documentations
Yeah.
and they have no way to interact
Yeah.
or read through the documentation. So I think that's another pain point that we had. And we were trying to figure out if Notebook LM can help us
Yeah.
reach that goal. So yeah.
Yeah. When I started experimenting with NotebookLM, there was three things that really stood out, right? And I'm curious to hear what you think, right?
Mhm.
Number one is that you don't actually have to write a lot of prompts. They're like pre-built prompts in it, which makes it very easy, which is different than what we talk about in the bootcamp. Because in the bootcamp, we talk about how important it is to the well-structured prompt. But NotebookLM kind of makes that a little bit simple, right?
Mhm.
So there's things in which you can just kind of point and click, and you can get the responses that you want, right? Which I think was very good. which the others don't have yet. The second thing I liked is that you really can, what I liked about it was that you can actually pinpoint the sources that you want, right? So you mentioned earlier that there's internal documents, but you can marry internal documents with external documents and external websites, right? And you can
Absolutely.
bring it all together, and then the notebook LM can go through that and actually give you responses that you're looking for. And the third one is that it actually really changes the way you consume the responses, right? So they have this feature, which I know you're going to show about, in which you can actually you can create a podcast, a 10-minute or 5-minute podcast out of your own research notes, which means that you don't have to sit down and read anymore. You can actually have a podcast created just for the content that you have. And by the way, guys, when you see this, this is actually quite compelling. It is like, it's not something that is monotone. It's literally, it's two people
No.
talking. It's a conversation, and it's a lot more engaging. So I don't want to overhype it, but it is a very unique tool from all the other AI tools out there. So with that being said, Usman, why don't you talk about the 3 use cases you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, absolutely happy to do that. Before that, I want to set this up with a couple of points that I want to make is that I approach the whole learning situation from two perspectives. One is building my own knowledge base and then trying to interact with my knowledge base that are already
Right.
built. I think that's very important concepts to grasp if you're trying to like use these tools for your day-to-day work or whatever use case you might have. So Notebook LM for me is an effort to interact with my knowledge base, and Perplexity is trying to build my knowledge base. So one is a builder, one is an interactor. So I just keep those concepts in mind when we go through different use cases and everything.
I really like the workflow that you're going to show at the end, because I think you
Yeah,
really show about how you can use each tool
you
for
can
the
use
best.
them, yeah, simultaneously to, in your workflows. So let me start with sharing my screen real quick.
And Usman, what task are you showing us today?
So, so one of the major things that I do in my job is to try to read different AI papers. And, needless to say that those papers are very tech heavy and they have a lot of mathematics involved, and it's really time consuming to go one by one. So in the first task, I will demonstrate how I try to read the paper with the help of Notebook LM. So I'm going to start from there. So this is Notebook LM, and we're going to start with creating a new notebook here. So you can create different notebooks for different tasks, and it'll just keep populating and keep everything in one section there. So here you can see the layout, and I can upload the documents, and this is the upload tab. As you can see, it's multimodal now. You can even interact with YouTube videos and websites. This was not there before that. And of course, you can
No, YouTube is new. They used to have
yeah,
websites.
YouTube is new. It's very fascinating. I actually use it a lot as well. So I'll show you another use case there. So let's start by uploading the document that I was reading. It says this is the Mamba paper. This is one of the new architecture in AI. I'm sure we are aware of transformers, of which all LLMs are modern LLMs are built off. So this is another exciting new paper that came out a few months ago. And so as soon as you upload the document there, you can see the brief summary here. And then you can ask a different question here. For example, I will ask, how is Mamba different compared to Transformer? So, and it's going to go through the document, and they already have a comparison slide there. So it, as you can see, it extracted all the information from the research paper, and it also has the different references there. Yeah, and that's very important for me, because like a lot of different tools, they hallucinate a lot, but in Notebook LM, it keeps everything focused. So almost like a RAG interacting with almost like a retrieval augmented generation. So you can get the overview here and then everything. And if you want to like want the tool to explain to you in a lay language, and you can also do that. Help me understand this in a simple language. That's another tool, the command that I use. And you can see in terms of different commands, they're very short and sweet. You don't have to elaborate anything. There's no example, there's no few shot or one shot or few shot learning involved. So Hey is a much more simplified version that you can read, and it's less jargonish and everything. And so now that we have one of the document here, if I want to add another source, which is another competing paper that came out of Google recently, which is Titans, which is another exciting development. So now I can compare and contrast both papers instead of going through just one document and ask question based off of that. I think you can upload almost like 50 resources right now
You
in
can.
one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can upload a lot, and sometimes you can upload whole textbooks if you want to interact with them. So I will ask, how is Mamba different than Titans? And it'll give you an answer here. Now, remember, it's interacting with two different documents here when I ask this question. So it's going to take some time. There you go. Now it's comparing and contrasting both of them. I think that's really useful for my workflow from day to day. I can have all the different research paper that I'm interested in at one place, and I can just ask questions based off that. And so that's one use case. The other thing is, you can see there are a couple of tabs here. Like one is called study guide. So study guide is like, it helps you ask questions. So if you just click on the study guide, it help you ask what questions to ask, and also give you some sample answers. So this is helpful when you're trying to prepare for some sort of exam or something like that. I think that's really helpful feature for that. If you have a study material and if you're trying to prepare for some certification or something like that, I think that's going to be a huge help. So
Yeah.
here you can see different sample quiz that is important, and their key answers. So that's another way to learn. Remember, learning is really important in this domain. So that's a great feature that I found it. Other thing is
Yeah. Did
briefing
you ever try
document.
the briefing doc? Because the briefing
Oh
doc is
yeah.
great.
Yeah, briefing
Right.
doc, I use it all the time, especially when I want to share something with my team. So our team is like range from all different executives to technical people. So creating one document is always challenging. So this helps me do that. If
Yeah.
I come across a couple of new architectures that we want to play around with or get funding from the CTO, then I think that's the use case that I use. So here everything is very in relatively lay language, and you can always customize that as well further.
Yeah.
And the best feature that I like about the whole thing is creating a deep dive conversation, which Mustafa mentioned is, and you can also customize your commands as well. Like if you want to narrow down like a type of audience you want to create it. For example, keep this podcast focused on high level discussion with the technical jargon. And you can customize the length as well. And sometimes the podcasts are like 30 minutes. Let's try to keep it down within the 10 minutes. Keep it under 10 minutes. And then you ask it to generate. It's gonna take some time, but this is a great way if you are on the go and you don't have time to study 2 or 3 papers in detail. I think, and the conversation is pretty natural. It's not robotic. You can listen to them like all day probably. It's the sound quality is that good. Um, and I think that's a great way to assimilate knowledge and try to understand difficult concepts while on the go. And I use it all the time. I have a whole host of libraries that I've built from different podcasts that I listen and refresh my memory. That's a good way to refresh your memory as well, especially when you have studied something. So this takes a little while, but it's really worth it. And here you can create FAQs as well if you're trying to use this documentation to create some sort of, company
Yeah.
policy or something like
Usman,
that.
in the
Mhm.
in the interest of time, I don't know if
Yeah.
NotebookLM does it. So if you start a new task, will it continue to create the podcast?
I have never tried it, but let's try that.
Because I know the podcast takes at least 5 minutes. So
Oh, really?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it can, that's why I try to keep it under 10 minutes, but let's hop on to
Yeah, we
another
can
use
go
case.
back to the old
Yeah.
notebook.
Yeah.
So the other thing just is that I like the way Notebook LM organizes your notes, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the problems that I have with both Claude and OpenAI is that your history is it's like an unstructured list of things.
Mm-hmm.
With Notebook LM, the organization is a lot better, right?
Yeah.
Like you can see when Usman goes back to his home screen, you'll see all those notebooks organized. And then you can
Yeah.
go back to that notebook and then you can almost add resources and continue the conversation.
Yeah. You can add resources. You can take out new outdated ones and keep
Yeah.
it updated. So I think that's a very important use
So,
case.
and then Usman, before you go, so I know you're going to the next task, but if you go back to the previous task, just from
Mhm.
a productivity and benefit perspective, how have you enjoyed this? Like, what are the benefits?
Oh, there's benefits are a lot. It saves me a lot of time. Like if I want to read this paper, Mamba paper, it's gonna take me at least 1 hour just
Yeah.
and that's just skimming over the paper, not just taking a deep dive and checking all the references and everything. And I think in terms of just the time saved, is have saved me like probably more than 15 hours at this point, like every week. So
Perfect.
it's
Yeah.
really, really important. And so the podcast is almost ready. Let me just
Oh,
play
good.
it and see.
It seems like every day AI is doing something incredible. You know,
Yeah.
it's learning in ways that feel almost human, like especially when it comes to memory.
Oh, yeah.
Today, we're doing a deep dive into two new research papers that are all about memory in AI.
Okay.
One is about Mamba, which helps AI process things like language and DNA.
Interesting.
And the other one is about Titans, which actually uses the human brain as inspiration for its design.
Wow. The human brain,
You can
huh?
see how engaging
Yeah.
this conversation is as
Mhm.
opposed to reading white text on black screens,
Absolutely. You can just
right?
listen
You can put it in
whether
your
you
car and you're driving.
yeah,
So
you drive or if you're in a subway here, like in New York City, this is a good
yeah,
way to kill time. And you can see it was pretty close to 10 minutes. I put it in command, and
yeah.
so you can tweak it. Like if you want to make it longer, it'll do that as well. So
You know what I do is I actually upload YouTube videos because a lot of podcasts are
oh
now
yeah,
YouTube videos, but
yeah,
they're like an hour long.
hmm,
And what I do is I just take that and I say, give it to me in 5 to 6 minutes. I actually
absolutely.
don't do anything more than 5 to 6 minutes.
That's
uh,
great. Yeah,
and then I can see I can get the whole interview and the gist of it, and I'm done.
yeah. As you can see, it has the ability to process video data as well. So
Yeah.
that's another great use, especially if you're listening to 2 or 3 hours podcast, you can get the gist in a few minutes.
I know we're getting close to
Mm-hmm,
10:30. How
mm-hmm.
about we do the workflow piece? So let's skip the middle use case
Okay.
and
Okay.
go to the Perplexity plus
So
Notebook LM.
yeah, so like I mentioned, that there are two components that I play around with. One is building my knowledge base. Another is interacting with my knowledge base. So Notebook LM was interacting with my knowledge base, but where I build my knowledge base is Perplexity. So, like I mentioned, I have to keep myself abreast with all the different developments every month. So one of the commands that I always use is like trying to figure out what are the most exciting papers that got published every month. So usually I put what are the most exciting new papers that got published last month. You can restrict it to academic research only. So it'll only go through academic journals and not the journal web. I think that's a very nifty feature here. And you can also choose the model that you want to use for that. I'll just go with the pro regular model in this case. And as you can see here, it'll produce a list of the papers that I should go through at least once or probably dig deeper before going through full read or something like that. So that's a very useful command that I always run once a month, and then copy and paste all the outcomes, all the answers here into my Word document. As you can see, it's going through a lot of different documentations and a lot of different journals, and it's going through both industry as well as academic papers. So it has created a list of papers for me to go through, and just a brief summary of them. And what I can do, I can just copy and paste and create a new document here that I can further study and go from there. This is one use case. The other exciting new feature that just came out last month is Spaces.
Usman, before you go to spaces,
Yeah,
I think spaces is
yeah,
cool. So
okay.
you copy the output from Perplexity, you put it
Yeah.
into some kind of document, and then you upload it into NotebookLM.
NotebookLM, yeah.
And that's when
Exactly.
you can run all the stuff that you showed us earlier.
Exactly. And I
Okay.
keep building my knowledge base. So this is for month of January. I have like documents going back almost a year. So I can play around with this document
Got
as
it.
well and see the progress using the timeline function. So there's a timeline function in here, and it shows you the different timelines and how things progress. So I think that's another cool
Yes,
function.
I think that's a great one.
Yeah,
And just
yeah,
for our audience, the way, you mentioned earlier, Perplexity is really for AI search, right? It is where you get
absolutely.
all your sources,
Mhm.
right? And then Usman uses that to get all the sources, and then he puts it into the NotebookLM in the sources column, which I believe is on the left-hand side.
Yeah, if you just copy and paste everything, so it'll have another extension of it, which is sources with different references,
Yeah.
and you can play around with those references as well. So
Yeah.
that's
This is a good example of how you use each LM for its own strength and weaknesses, right? So the stuff that NotebookLM does well, Perplexity doesn't do well. And by the way, Perplexity from an AI search perspective is much better than even Claude or ChatGPT, or frankly speaking, even Gemini, which is kind of surprising. So as you get used to using more and more large language models, you'll realize that certain models are great at certain things, and that's how you have to use it. And that's just the way you actually build your skills, right? So I'm sorry, Usman, I just wanted to kind of highlight that difference.
That's totally valid point. Another thing about that I like about Perplexity, it has all the models by default. So it has Claude, it has even DeepSeek R1 if you want to use it. I'll show you here. So the Spaces is a new feature that they launched recently, and it's basically the retrieval augmented generation coupled with web search, which is really a cool feature. Usually to build a RAG pipeline, you need some certain amount of technical expertise, but here you can use it as it is. So if you just have to create your own space first, so I'll just label it Gen AI Research Space, just quickly labeling it something and just continue. So now it has created a space for you, and you can upload different files and links here. And you can also choose the model that you want to run. So if you want to run the R1 model, reasoning model, then you can run as well. Pro basically has ChatGPT 4 as a default, and you can choose another models if you want. So just quickly, I'll probably upload the same files from Mamba. And so this here, it takes a little bit of time to upload the documents. I don't know why, but even uploading the document takes a little bit of time. And I'll probably upload a link here just to mix things up here. So now I can upload a link. This is another reading mode. Okay.
So the spaces that you're talking about here is actually called projects in Claude and OpenAI, right? But it is it's a great way to chat with your own information.
Absolutely. In the projects, you cannot collaborate with other people. Here, you can collaborate with other people as well. If you're working on a larger project, I think that's where it shines better than the projects. So here, I have restricted to the academic research. Here I will say, please search.
And by the way, we do have some questions. In fact, we have 2 questions.
Okay.
So why don't you finish what you're doing, and then we can go.
Yeah, okay. And we'll go through the whole thing. And so this is another great way to create your own knowledge base as well. So whatever you get here, you can optimize it, you can improve it, and you can also use it to create your own LinkedIn post, basically. So it'll generate the images, it'll generate everything based off of the documents that you've uploaded, and it's like pretty legit in that aspect. And I'm trying to play around with that use case right now as well. So do check out Spaces, and here they have some of the new other cases that they have published. So if you're planning your new business trip, you upload your itinerary or your schedule and everything, and it'll figure out stuff for you as well. And also the travel logistic, if you upload your vaccine record, and it'll show you if you're going to some new country, which vaccines do you need and why, and it'll go search through the vaccine regulations in the country as well. Home renovation ideas, shopping ideas. It's just the it's just a whole gold mine of different use cases here. Summarize function is not very good. I have to admit with some of the LLMs because they hallucinate and give you it skip over some of the important details and give you some random vanilla summary. That function I don't use as much. And especially for study, if you want to study the confusion topic, I think this is a great way to study. I think this is going to overtake some of the traditional learning channels.
Yeah, and I think we're just scratching the surface. In fact,
Oh, yeah.
you'll see that there's a big change. Like last year, it was all about let's get to the latest model, right? This year, you'll see more and more features come out, like spaces or projects that you see in the large language models. And
Yeah.
as they're thinking about more and more, they're figuring out more and more on the UX side and the usability side, as opposed to just the raw power of what you can do with large language models, which I think is great
Yeah.
because I think we'll always struggle with how to use it effectively.
Yeah, absolutely.
Usman, in the interest of time, let me go through the questions. Yes, so we actually have 2 from Cameron and 2 from Esteban. So I'll just go in order.
Okay. Stop sharing real quick.
So from Cameron, let me just make sure I'm reading this correctly. The briefing doc summarizes the paper or summarizes the responses of the questions you asked. So this goes back to your first use case.
So the briefing doc summarizes the paper, basically. Like summarize the key findings in the paper, and they do so in a relatively lay language. It's not very jargon heavy. So it's just going to be like the overview, the 3,000 feet overview of the whole document. And it's a great way to share the information with other people who are not that tech savvy or who are in leadership roles and everything. And I think that's a great way to do that.
Perfect. And then from Esteban, we have 2, like, how do you share your workspace or notebooks across the organization? How do you communicate the value for other PMs?
So that's always a challenge, So what we have in our organization is a great AI sandbox. So we don't disseminate everything to like across the organization. So we play around with a lot of these new technologies in that environment, and we give them access through specialized internal access to different people who want to access those or should access those. So, but overall, I think there's still like some challenges, some governance challenges in implementing those new cutting edge tool across the organization. So you should be definitely very of that. So mostly I think you can experiment personally, but I think for personal growth, it's very important.
Perfect. And then another one from Esteban, like, why would you use Perplexity Spaces versus NotebookLM?
So with NotebookLM, you are only limited. So NotebookLM doesn't search the web for you. With Perplexity, you have the whole web in front of you. It merges your document. It's almost like a RAG pipeline. So what RAG does is it keeps your own documents as a ground truth and then search the web to supplement the missing material. So I think that's where Perplexity really shines. And you can change the underlying model as well, and the responses will change. So if you interact with Claude, it's much more friendly. If you interact with the ChatGPT 4.0, 4.0, it's much more straightforward and much more verbose. So you'll see these changes in choosing different models. And with our DeepSeek R1, it goes through different chain of thought reasoning. It will take a lot of time and then give you a very high quality answer. So these are all different tools that serve different niches. NotebookLM is just wonderful. I love the podcast function, to be honest with you.
And Esteban, to answer, to just add to what Usman is saying, when you use spaces or projects, what it does is that every time it runs the prompt, it's not just reading the prompt, but it's also reading what's in your spaces document. And so because of that, your context window becomes much larger. And think about the 2 things as what you put in your spaces are things that are what I would call are just things that you want the AI to know about you, right? Things that don't change, like, what I work with this organization, or, the travel piece that Usman was talking about, right? The things like, this is how old I am, this is where I live, right? This is my citizenship. That stuff doesn't change, right? But when you ask a question about, hey, I'm going to go to, I don't know, I'm going to go to Spain, right? Or, the next day you're going to go to Japan. Like, and so what it does is it knows where you are or who you are, and then answers those questions based on that. And that's where you get this deep personalization piece that we actually go deeper into the bootcamp. Usman, there's another question from Kamran too, but I am conscious about time. And I'm happy if, and Usman, if you can stick around, I would love for you to show Kamran, because what he wants to know is how do you take the sources from Perplexity and then how do you marry it with NotebookLM going forward.
Yeah.
But before we do that, and Kamran, if it's okay for you to hang out a bit, let me just do a quick plug on the bootcamp itself, because if people want to leave, I want to be respectful of their time. So I'm just going to share with you just a quick take on the bootcamp. So listen, the stuff we're doing here is just scratching the surface, right? And Usman can talk about his experiences with the bootcamp itself. But if you are serious about figuring out how you can use AI to transform your PM role, if you're serious about learning how to master the practicality of it, and the stuff that you'll see, and it's part of what you saw today, is that our stuff is very practical. It's not theoretical. It's stuff that you can actually take right away. I think Usman will tell you that by the end of the first session, you can probably automate close to 30, 35 tasks that you have, and you can start doing it right away. So if you're interested, and if you're serious, and if you're looking to save 10 hours, if you're looking to get better results than what you can just get by asking simple questions from AI, and if you're really looking to advance your career, there's a lot of people who've actually used AI just in the last year to differentiate yourself. And Usman, I know you use that to actually help you, give you a leg up on the job itself that you just got. Usman just got a new job, so congratulations. But if you're serious about it, think about it. The bootcamp starts in 3 days, 4 days. Kamran, I'm looking forward to having you in the bootcamp. I'm glad you signed up. But you're welcome to do that. The next one, as I was telling Kamran, is probably going to be Q4, maybe end of Q3. I only do this twice a year. So with that being said, I'll stop with the plug, and then we can go back to what we really want to talk about is with this one. So Usman, are you okay with staying back a little bit and just talking about how you use Perplexity and NotebookLM?
Sure.
Perfect.
All right. So in terms of how I use them both, so there's another tool.
Why don't you go back to the sources that you gathered from Perplexity, put it into document, and then put it into NotebookLM so people can actually see your workflow, if that's okay with you.
Okay, let me share my screen real quick. Hopefully you can see my screen. So if I pull out my last search, so this is the search that I think this is the spaces search. Okay, so this is the search that I did in Perplexity. So if I just copy everything from here, if everything looks good, then I'll just open up a Word document. So by the way, NotebookLM only takes PDF, so you have to convert your Word documents into PDF. So that's the extra step.
It does take Google Docs, by the way, which is
I never tried it, but we'll see. So here you can see the citations as well. So
sorry, I'm still partial to Google.
So. Okay, yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. But I don't have any allegiance.
Well, when you work for them for so many years,
yeah, absolutely. So as you can see, all the documents here, and they also have their links here. So I'll keep the links. I'll save everything as a PDF document. Download it in download folder. And hopefully I'll have, and then I'll go here. I'll upload. Okay, where did it go? Did I name it? I think I didn't name it. Second, last month. Now it worked. Let's go back. I'll upload it here. So now you have all the links and document, and I'll try to combine it with other papers that I've read. Just choose maybe Titans. And then you can ask question basically, with these later development compared to Titans. And of course I have to go through the material in this document myself first to ask better questions, but let's just start with the mock question. And this is the way it'll produce a new response, basically going through both documents and trying to come up with something different. Another thing that I use a lot, which is, so this is my personal device. It's not my work device, but it's a tool called make.com. So what this does is allows you to build different workflows. So if you go to their, see if I have an account here.
Make is basically a competitor to Zapier if you've heard of that.
Yeah, it's the same, but you can link different LLMs and
Yes.
in your workflows, and I think that automates a lot of process. So I
Yeah,
have
I
some.
actually like their UX a lot better.
Oh
So
yeah,
that's number one. Number two, they're a lot cheaper.
yeah, they're a lot cheaper, and they have built-in templates. If you want to use, for example, ChatGPT, if you want to create command and link it to ChatGPT and produce a response in some other way, or link it to to some email server to respond to someone, I think that's
Yeah.
a great way to really automate your process. So I use this tool a lot. So I think if you're really looking to automate a lot of your workflows, I think that's a great way. You can fit in Perplexity as well. I think they have Perplexity as well. Um, yeah, so they have Perplexity tools. So these are the workflows involving Perplexity. So you can send messages on Telegram and basically automate the chat. So you can chat with 300 people at once, basically. And I also use this extension that they have, a Perplexity extension. So you can ask question on a website, make your notes and create those notes and transport them over to NotebookLM and to increase your knowledge base as well. So these are some of the strategies that I use all over the place, basically. And hopefully that'll answer some of your question.
Yeah.
But
Usman, you and I should
yeah,
have another session on how you use Zapier or Make, because
yeah.
there's a lot of integration that wasn't even available 6 months ago with the large language
No,
models,
no, it's
right?
like a whole new world these
Yeah,
days.
I mean,
Like,
there are PMs that I've run across that are basically using it to just automate even tedious things on email,
yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And so there's a whole set of automations that you can do.
Yeah.
But I think
For
that's
example,
going to be,
we use it to request POCs or from vendors, like,
yeah,
we automatically send them, hey, this is
yeah,
our requirement. If you're interested, just fill it out and we'll
yeah,
go from there.
yeah.
So there's no human interaction for that couple of steps.
Good. I know there's two questions. That's one I'll get to. Is there anything else on anything that you guys want to talk to Usman or ask Usman any questions? Feel free to drop in chat or feel free to just ask. So,
It was really great. Thanks, Usman.
Yeah, happy to help.
yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say
Us,
thank you for taking your time. I really appreciate it. And if you guys ever do that, Mustafa, you suggested the other one, I'll definitely be there because that sounded very interesting about Zapier, I believe.
yes. You know what? There's a lot more happening with connecting disparate systems with Make and Zapier and other tools. And so I'll have to figure out some really good use cases that we can share, right?
Mhm.
Esteban, I know you asked if we talk about that integration or workflow in the class. Unfortunately, we don't. The class really focuses more on building your AI skills first. I'll give you my opinion, and I'll tell you why I like and I don't like. When you automate a process with Zapier or Make, right? That process only works if you're fairly confident. First of all, the task has to be very, very small. It has to be very, very descriptive. And by the way, there can be zero variations in it. And it has to be highly repeatable, right? And so when you think about large language models, by definition, the answers from large language models are not repeatable, right? You can ask the same question and you're going to get two different responses, right? So unless you take a very predictive task, right, and say, like, for example, the best use case I have or I've seen of people using Make and Zapier is if they get a certain email from somebody, right, very specific, and say, what you wanted to summarize a podcast, or if you want to summarize a white paper, then they'll actually integrate it into Make and Zapier, because then you really are no variations, right? The workflow really knows who you're going to get to and exactly what instructions they are. And so those tasks are very predictive, and so that's where it works. And so if you have those type of tasks, it's great to use it. But if you have any variations, which I know as a product manager, we have lots of variations, it starts to create, it's more work than anything else. And I'll give you another example, right? There was a PM who wanted to actually integrate research papers that you would pull from Perplexity, just like what Usman did, connect it to OpenAI, and have OpenAI create a LinkedIn post from it. And then I don't think so it can publish it yet, but she was able to have it added to a Word document, or sorry, a Google Doc, which sounds great, by the way. But then when you take a look at the quality of the LinkedIn post, it's, for a lack of a better word, it's crap. And so you have to be very careful about what task you use, right? And so we're not there yet. But yes, this integration that we're talking about now is happening. And some of that integration you saw already happening, in which you don't need make or any of these things. Like the RAG stuff that Usman is talking about is an integration, right? It's integrating your internal documents with AI to be able to get response.
Yeah, especially the graphical RAG is very, very precise. So
Yeah.
if you want to use RAG, then use graph RAG.
Yeah, and by the way, just for people who don't know what RAG is, RAG stands for Retrieval Augmentation Generation. And what it really means in a simple term is that you can chat with your information, right? It will actually, if you ask a question of your information, it will go through your information, come up with the answer, and then give you an answer, and give you search for the answer and give you the answer back. And that's the retrieval part of it. So that's really, RAG is a fancy word of it being able to talk to your own data. Good. Is there any other questions for Usman or for myself? Well, with that being said, thank you very much. Esteban, I saw that if you asked about a promo code, unfortunately, I don't actually have a promo code. It's a fixed price. Just keep it simple.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
But if that is, you know what, I'll put the link in to my course. I should probably do that. You know what, I am actually not good at marketing. That's my problem. But you know what, we always end up selling out. So I must be doing something right.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. This has been super helpful.
Good.
Yeah.
But with that being said, thank you once again, Usman. Thank you, Esteban and Cameron. I apologize for being interactive, for being engaging. Esty, thanks for sticking around. I'm glad you found it of value. And then if there's no other questions, we can adjourn. You guys can enjoy the rest of your Friday. And then hopefully I'll see some of you. I'm definitely going to see Kamran, but hopefully I'll see some of you on Tuesday, right? Usman, once again, thanks, dude. And we should,
Yeah,
I think you and I need to talk anyways. We have a whole bunch of other things that we're working on.
Yeah.
Usman
This field
we
is
should talk
developing
about
so
the,
fast, it boggles my mind sometimes. But
I'm sorry?
this whole field is developing so fast
Yes.
that whatever you talk now is probably going to be obsolete in 6 months. So you have to keep, stay on the hamster wheel. It's
I
like,
agree. I agree.
it's
You know
one
what?
of those
Before we
things.
go, Usman, any parting? I mean, you've gone through the course some time ago. Anything else you want to add?
No, just
like your experience with it. What do you like?
just keep, I think the trick is to keep experimenting with these tools. Sometimes they surprise you with the capabilities, and especially with just keep yourself focused on your own problems, like what you're trying to get help with. Forget about what other people are doing. I think if you try to play with the tool and tool try to help you out. I think that's what I'm finding out right now.
Yeah.
There's a way to do things no matter how the tool is. So.
I mean, I think experimentation is a big
Absolutely.
part of what we talk about even in the boot camp, right? It's a lot of it is based on just getting that experimentation mindset. And it's always nice when you actually have a student who comes back and becomes a teacher. That means we must be doing something right.
Well, we'll try. I just try. I'm happy to be a student anyway, but yeah, that's what we
Well,
are.
with that being said, thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it. Yes.
All right. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye for now.